I'm Michael Kemper. Today is July the 7th, 2013. This is my first video blog / designer's diary ever, so bear with me if I ramble on a bit. I started designing a game not too long ago and thought it would be a good idea to record all the ups and downs of my design process. So about 10 years ago I was sitting in a restaurant with a buddy of mine, joking around, and I came up with this idea for something called Boys on the Hood. Obviously they play on words. But what I pictured was players moving around a board inside a town with boys sitting on the hood of their car, hanging on for dear life as they go swinging around corners and speeding along. So I wrote down some rules, drew up a board, made up some cards, and even had a playtest session. Things went pretty well, but then life happened, and 10 years passed. Boys in the Hood never was out of my mind, so after all that time I've decided to return to it and see if I can't make it a viable game. Now, the premise of Boys in the Hood is that the biggest and wildest party of the year is taking place tonight at the club. And you're finally old enough to go, and you thought it'd be the great thing to do is to swing through town, pick up all your buds, and get to the club. The only problem is there's limited space, so you're going to have to race to do it. And there's one other problem. You've got so much stereo equipment in your car, there's nowhere for anyone to sit except on the hood. And the boys have a bad habit of falling off. So you can see where this is going. So I'm going to take a minute here and explain the basics of Boys in the Hood to you so you have some idea of where I'm going. This is the board here. Everything's in a pretty primitive state right now, so excuse the lack of neat graphic arts and illustrations, but this should get the point across. So the game is separated into rounds. Each round has a first player, and then every player takes their turn. Rounds begin with drag racing, which is a way to gain points in the game. Then subsequent players take their turns. Turns work pretty simple. Players would roll a die, move a number of spaces along the track, anywhere they want. They just have to follow the arrows if there are any. Now the goal they're trying to do is get to the club way down there. And you can see there are some one-way tracks that they have to be careful on how they use. Now, as they move around, you'll see that they come across these spots marked with a B. Now, for every one they pass, they get to pick up a boy. Now, these are a few of the boys. You can see that they all have a dollar amount up in the upper left-hand corner, and this is a point value in the right-hand corner. You need the money to get into the club at the end of the game, but you need the points to win the game. You can see that the lower point boys are actually worth more money, where the higher point boys are worth less. And some of the boys will actually have special abilities on them, so they'll enhance the game in that way. Players can also play cards on their turns and other players' turns. They'll have a hand of 4 playing cards. They'll do things like let them re-roll a check if some boy falls off their hood, or draw a free boy, or force someone to turn a corner when they don't want to, and that sort of thing. When you do pick up a boy, you put the boy on your hood. Now, this is pretty simple, but this is a hood template. There are 9 slots, each one with a number value in there, and that's the number that you would have to roll in order to save a boy from falling off if you were to satisfy the conditions for falling off. The trick here is, once you put a boy in a spot, you can't move him. So you want to put your best boys in the safest spots and your worst boys in the unsafe spots. Now, players can cause falling off by going 6 or more spaces in a turn, or going around a corner, like here, going 5 or more spaces. And then they would roll a die for each boy on their hood to see if they fall off. Another complication in the game for the players are the cops, represented by these blue tokens out here. Now, each one is stationed at a donut shop. If a player goes more than 6 in a round, or if a card called Here Comes the Cops gets played, which is a mandatory card if you draw it, then a cop gets activated and they move around on players' turns, and if they catch a player, they give them a ticket. And the ticket is worth -2 points, which hurts you at the end of the game. Now the game basically progresses until somebody thinks that they can win the game and has enough money to make it into the club. There's a cover charge of $15, and they race up to the club, and once they're there, the game basically goes into its end phase, and players have 5 rounds, starting with the first player of the round, to make it to the club. Now the first player to get to the club gets the most points for getting to the club itself, with the second and third player getting a little bit less each. Players after that are just trying to get there in order to save the points on their boys, because if they don't make it, they only get to count their boys on their hood at half points, which makes it pretty hard to win the game. But I have seen a couple of close games because someone had a lot of boys but didn't make it to the club. Well, that's Boys in the Hood in a nutshell. I've been playtesting for about the last 4 weeks, and I've made some minor changes, some additions, and some major overhauls. The game's been pretty well received by my playtest group. They've given me a lot of valuable feedback. Some of the major changes that I've made are to the way we pick up boys. The original method involved dozens of tokens and keeping track of where boys had already been picked up, and it was a mess. Slowed the game down, and basically took a lot of the fast-paced nature of the game out. Turned it into a snail's pace. The other big trouble area has been the cops, and how to get them to function just right so that they are a danger to the players but not devastating. We've had games in the past where people have gotten dozens of tickets practically, and finished the game with negative points, and clearly that's not the goal. So that's something that I've been working on. I'm starting to spread out into some other gaming groups, getting some blind testing done, since things are getting refined, and hopefully I'll be hearing back from them to find out if the rules are even readable and understandable, and see where it goes from there. Now, some thoughts about what I plan to do with Boys in the Hood. There's always the traditional publisher route, which can take a lot of time, but is definitely the safer bet. You might even make a little money doing it. Then there's the self-publishing route, which is a whole lot of work. Not that I've done it before, but I have been doing my research on it, and it is a ridiculous amount of work. But there is a nice thing to be said about being able to take a project like this from beginning all the way to the end and know that it's out there for people to play. And that's really why you'd have to do it, as there's probably very little money in self-publishing, if any. But at least you know that if you successfully pull it off, the game is out there for people to play. And ultimately, that's the reason to design any game, is to give something to people to have fun with. So for now, I'm actually just going to focus on creating the best game I can and worry about what to do with it a little later. But, there's things bouncing around inside my head. Anyway, that's it for right now. I hope to get a couple more playtest sessions in before the next entry and be able to update you guys on what's been going on. If you'd like to follow the progress of Boys in the Hood, you can subscribe here, and you can also follow on Facebook at www.facebook.com/boysonthehood. There isn't much there at the moment because it just got put up, but I'll be making at least weekly, if not multiple editions each week about what's going on. And if you're interested in playtesting, leave a comment and we'll see about how we can get a playtest copy to you. I'd love to hear feedback and comments, even advice from experienced gamers, experienced designers, well, pretty much anybody. Thanks a lot.